When did you realize that you were dating a loser? It was 2008. A couple months before the election. It was the first year I was able to vote, and told my girlfriend at the time that I was planning on voting for Obama. She tells me she would never vote for him because, and I quote, "I don't like an asterisk 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 curse. And split." Well, I didn't know Obama was a Nintender. He wouldn't let me sign his yearbook out of fear that I would write something lovey and gross, and signed mine with a swear word in huge capital letters. Sadly, I continued dating them for the entire summer. He just wanted the cool kids to accept "Hi Monsieur," that's all he ever wanted. Which is stupid and telltale sign of a loser. Or at least I think so. We were both gamers, but he would play one single map on CS. Go over and over and over from 5 until midnight. He didn't have friends to team up with because he was a toxic player, so he got paired with randos and would yell at them for not doing it right. He also had multiple Steam accounts to get around the many day and week-long bans he would receive for verbally abusing people. He was clearly in some weird cyclical hell, so I suggested he play a different level for a challenge. But he wouldn't because he didn't want to learn anything new. That particular level, I think it's called Dust or Dust 2, got an aesthetic upgrade, and I bet he was pissed about it because he's terrible with change. Holy shit, Dust 2. I had friends that abandoned all the other games we'd play to do exactly what you described. Just play fucking Dust 2 all night. I never understood that. Found out she was super into Naruto. The kicker was I was a Dragon Ball Z fanboy. Nearly a decade later, and both losers are happily engaged. When he told me his plans to get on Social Security to avoid getting a job. "Were you dating my dad?" He has always openly admitted that this was his goal. He's genuinely disabled now, so I guess dreams do come true. I have members of my expanded family who this was their goal too. They wanted to cushion their illegal activities. Real gems. "Sorry about your dad." She referred to vaccines as tyranny. Sounds like something an infectious disease would say. When he was going out for a pack of cigarettes and went missing on a crack bender for 3 days. I had no idea. Well, just wow. "I'd be disappointed if my kids turned out gay," he said to his bisexual girlfriend. Sure tried to spin that shit as a joke. Sigh. Did they hit you with a, "Well, lesbians and bisexual women aren't bad, but gay men are?" Quote. Of course. Of course. Gay men, that's just weird. It's different that you like girls. That's normal. Quote. Had a separate tantrum when I informed him he was cisgender, as opposed to transgender. Can't explain that one in the slightest. When I discovered she pressured her mom to get a divorce because she had a crush on her dad. I'm not joking. That's fucked up, man. Roll tight. As soon as she says yes. Oh, self-burn. That's rare. Not really. Cool, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt. She put up with my shit for too long and would often go out of her way to please me even if it made her uncomfortable. I wish I could go back and beat the shit out of myself. We were both losers, but she deserved much, much better. Preach, man. I was such a shithead, and then I just dropped her after 3 fucking years out of nowhere. It was probably doing her a favor, but I was too much of an emotionally stunted coward to handle it with any sort of compassion or basic humanity. I didn't realize until I met my current my ex treated me like shit, but it was all I knew. That person criticized me like it was his job. I was 15 and dating a boy a few years older than me. We were talking one day about what we wanted to do with our lives after high school. He was adamant about becoming a pro wrestler, and that was it. I said that was cool, but maybe he should look into going to community college as well, and he got upset and called me a dream killer. I ended things shortly after. I don't know what he's up to now, but I did see his mugshot on the news once. Greater than I was 15 and dating a boy a few years older than me. You could have stopped right there. I have dated 2 first one I knew when he unironically yelled, "Die, die, die, die," at the video game he was playing in our bedroom at 2:30 a.m. while I was trying to sleep before my shift. He also never cleaned, and threw away a $40,000 degree, which he completed with high marks and job offers, to go work at a grocery store so he could still game with his friends for upwards of 7 hours a day. Every day. He was also abusive too, so that's a loser move. Second one was actually a decent guy, but he wasn't really going anywhere. Every time we hung out he would either be drinking or smoking and never seemed to be able to stay sober for long. He was also working at a factory and was constantly getting laid off and would spend his day on weed, beer and rent for the most part. He was also about 7 years older than me and was about 26 or so at the time. He is a sweet guy but was a bit of a loser. He also cheated on his girlfriend with me. He told me they had an open thing. They did not. So also loser move. Greater than. He also never cleaned, and threw away a $40,000 degree, which he completed with high marks and job offers, to go work at a grocery store so he could still game with his friends for upwards of 7 hours a day. Every day. I mean, stick to what you enjoy, but wow. Just wow. Oh yeah, he was a piece of work. I would work doubles at the store I was at, and on my days off I had to do all the cleaning cause my job wasn't as hard as his since I wasn't a key holder. Just a giant child really. When he told me he had been on an episode of Cops. Ooh, was he the cop or the guy in the wife beater getting beaten on Cops? He was one of the many in a ratty t-shirt, handcuffed and sitting on the curb while they pulled loads of drugs from his car. When I realized she is just a shell. No personality or just nothing that stood out in any way. No plans for the future at all or job interests. No hobbies. Nobody showed interest in her before, and even I just gave her a chance instead of being interested myself because my ex said SHW likes me and kept trying to hook us up. Giving her hope without actually having feelings was *CK move on my part. TBH. I see this in a lot of people, and I think they probably have severe anxiety issues. They're so afraid of what other people will think of what they like or do that they freeze in life, to the point of not liking or doing anything. My ex was like this. No real interest in anything. Pretended to be interested in things that I was at first, or copied other people to fit in. He even went as far as buying a motorbike to try and get my parents in his side when we broke up. Did less than 100 miles on a brand new bike before selling it. He genuinely didn't have any personality. It's so weird to be with someone who brings nothing to the table. Like you can't even buy them a gift because they don't like anything. When I realized that everything I did in my life revolved around keeping her happy, I barely hung out with friends. My money was spent on showering her with romantic dates and gifts, and my hobbies became non-existent. It was literally work, spend time with her, sleep, repeat. And even then, it wasn't enough, considering she fucked around constantly with guys she worked with. When I discovered his other girlfriends, I will never understand this. How does someone lack the morals to break a relationship with another person yet still retain the intellectual pertinence to maintain multiple relationships? The more they can sustain, the more perplexing it becomes. Meanwhile, I can barely hold conversation with one person. I personally don't think morals and intellect are correlated or related in any way. I've known dumb honest people, smart honest people, dumb psychopaths, smart psychopaths. Oh man, you don't actively watch Joe Rogan's podcast. We're gonna have to change that. Yeah, sorry, I don't think this is gonna work out. Saw some post somewhere that was like, you don't need Joe Rogan when you've already got your friend's pot-smoking 27-year-old brother lives with his parents and says Mayans invented the cell phone. My junior year he was a senior. HS. I had just returned from a week-long band trip in another state and it was super late. He said he'd come pick me up from school and take me home. He arrived, and another girl hopped in his car and they drove off. Didn't hear from him for 2 days. He proposed to me later. Dodged that one. My ex missed the private view from my first exhibition because he was too busy arguing politics with his barber for 2 hours. But the moment I realized this sweaty creep was definitely 100% loser was how the guy would complain that he couldn't afford anything and about how bad he felt when he borrowed money from me. I'd feel bad for him too if he hadn't blown his and my money on video games and takeaways because life is hard and I deserve a treat. I watched an artist friend have a meltdown over something like this. It was his senior year in university art showing. All his friends, myself included, came to help out. I helped make canopies and hoisted my then girlfriend, now wife, up on my shoulders so she could adjust the lighting. The day of the showing, his out-of-town girlfriend decides to flake out despite everyone important in his life, including her parents, showing up to the event. I still remember his scream followed by his crash of his cell phone hitting the wall. When he heard the news, he is now married to a much nicer woman who is super on top of her commitments. When they got mad and threw a sandwich against the wall of our studio apartment. Well, if it had mayo, I get it. How TF can you eat a sandwich without mayo? I cannot stand mayo. My condiment choice is mustard. Came back from being in the Milt. Moved into my house and expected me to be his mother. Also would not pay me rent unless I reminded him to. He was 2 years older than me. Stayed up all night playing Fortnite. Would get drunk every night by himself. Didn't have a job BC. He saved a bunch of money while in the Milt, but would never buy groceries. Eat me out of the house. Started to only be into lesbian porn and kept forcing me to do threesomes. Even when we did the threesomes, he would throw a tantrum after if he felt like he wasn't included. Enough. Worst part is he dumped me over the fact that I sent a picture of myself to a friend. I was fully clothed. Was upset because I looked sexy in the photo and we did sexual things that night in that photo. I didn't look sexy. I looked like myself. How I didn't see he was a loser until after the relationship. Going to blame a lot of that on daddy issues. To this day he is still trying to win me back. I finally had to tell him if he doesn't stop I will file a restraining order. Funny how those things work out and how much self-love can do for you. Greater than stayed up all night playing Fortnite. That right there is enough. The few people I saw play Fortnite all spent all their money solely on the game. When he disappeared for the weekend to smoke pot, blocked me on his phone and stood me up because I was expecting him to stay with me for the weekend. This happened with 2 different guys. I am now happily single and got the fuck away from internet dating sites. Now ex-partner of 5 years suggested that we break up so they could drop out of university, move into a house chair and screw around. Then in a few months, if they felt different, we could get back together. In the meantime, I should replace the money they drained out of my house deposit savings and buy the house and get everything set up for them in case they came back. Suddenly I realized how lame they were when he laughed about how he bullies autistic kids. His parents invited us on a week-long family vacation to Key Largo and we happily accepted. I thought, about 2 weeks before we were to leave, we were in bed at his place and he says, "I wish this could be our week-long vacation. Just stay here in the apartment for a week and hang out. So you'd rather stay in your 1-bedroom and hide from your 2 roommates with your GF for a week, while just playing video games and having sex and ordering takeout. The exact thing we do every weekend. Instead of discover a beach area far away from home with fun tourist attractions and eat out at nice restaurants and have sex in a hotel where we could be louder than we ever could be in the shared apartment. Yeah, that should have been my first inkling that I didn't want to spend much more time romantically with this guy. Or maybe he didn't like his parents and didn't want to tell you. Also, he was not good at making excuses. To be sure, we both knew his mom is a little, overreactionary, and she is part of the reason I broke up with Hi Monsieur. What sort of a person scolds another for not being the first in a conversation to say, "Hello, how are you?" Quote. However, we were staying in a completely different hotel from his parents and could have gotten an Uber anytime to anywhere. But in Key Largo, anytime I brought up going somewhere, even just for a walk around the hotel or down to the extremely close shoreline, he was like, "But we've got everything we need. Food, video games, and Netflix. Right here in the hotel room." Quote. Oh well. One last thing, by any chance was he a vampire? Or let me put it this way, did he went overboard with love bites? Quote. Did his mouth smell of iron? And did he hate garlic? Quote. No, and no, but he did hate whenever I had food with onions in it. Just seems like he likes to stay home and not go out a ton, and saw it as an opportunity to just chill with you with no problems or worries. I don't really see how that makes him a loser. Everyone has their own preferences, and maybe he just preferred to not be out and about. I'm glad you're doing well now, and everyone isn't for everyone, but I hardly think that makes him a loser. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.